President Obama, as he was addressing the National Defense University in this speech where he outlined his national security priorities, a seminal speech in some ways, talked about his desire to close Guantanamo Bay again. And in fact, there was a surprising moment when the military crowd there gave him, there was no other applause. They weren't supposed to applaud, but they applauded vigorously at this one line about Gitmo.
No person has ever escaped one of our supermax or military prisons here in the United States, ever. Our courts have convicted hundreds of people for terrorism or terrorism-related offenses, including some folks who are more dangerous than most Gitmo detainees. They're in our prisons. And given my administration's relentless pursuit of al-Qaeda's leadership, there is no justification beyond politics for Congress to prevent us from closing a facility that should have never been opened. So,
all right, that sounds really good, and I like the line there. And he says it's time basically to close Guantanamo Bay, and he outlines several things he's going to do. He's going to designate a location inside the United States where they can hold a military commissions that is not in Gitmo. And he says that he's going to lift a self-imposed moratorium on transferring detainees to Yemen. And he's going to appoint a State Department and Pentagon envoy to personally oversee the transfer of detainees to other countries. Now, that all sounds pretty good. Now, let's break it down. Okay, number one, there are over 80 detainees who are set to be released. That means they are free to go. I don't know if they were ever guilty of anything, but now our government is saying they're not guilty of anything that we would keep them in jail for. Now, remember, there's a whole category of people who we think we have evidence on, but we can't really prove it. But we're going to keep them indefinitely anyway. These guys are not in that category. These guys are not considered dangerous at all. Free to go. They should be released. Now Obama is saying a lot of them are from Yemen. He himself had done a self-imposed moratorium on releasing people to Yemen. He says, am I not merciful? I would release them to Yemen. Yeah, I know. You should have released them 3-4 years ago because they were cleared for release. You've been keeping them there all those years when you think that they're not guilty. Why did you do that? So now we're supposed to thank Obama for finally lifting his own ridiculous rule on that. And then listen to the first thing that I mentioned there among his new priorities he's going to do for Gitmo. He says, don't worry, the military commissions, I'm not going to do them in Guantanamo Bay. I'm going to move them to the United States. But that's not what we asked for. Don't do the military commissions. As you pointed out in the speech, President Obama, we've already prosecuted hundreds of terrorists in civilian courts here in the United States, and they're in supermax prisons across the country. Our system can handle it. It has shown over and over again. The Bush administration prosecuted dozens of terrorists under their watch in civilian courts, including the shoe bomber Richard Reed, including Zacarias Moussaoui, who was involved in 9/11, all in civilian courts. So stop doing the military commissions and stop indefinitely detaining people without a trial. That is against the core concept of America. What does that mean? We keep people forever and we never try them? We never give them an opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, it wasn't me, you've got the wrong guy. So the last part of it is, he says, look, Congress has been fighting me on Guantanamo and they've got to stop. But part of that, and I hope that this speech is the beginning of this, but you don't want to get too hopeful with President Obama, is that you fight back. Yeah, I know the Republicans, they didn't want the guys transferred to America. Okay, they're in the opposite party, and you're the president of this party, and you had just won an election back in 2008, and on the campaign promise that you would close Gitmo. So you were supposed to fight back. And he has a lot of authority as the executive to be able to do that, and he keeps signing those so-called compromises of the new bill every single year where he says, okay, fine, I will not transfer any detainees. Then don't sign it. Veto it. But he doesn't have the stones to veto it. So when he says this is unconscionable, this is, at one point in this speech, he talked about the guys who were doing the hunger strike, and he said, is this who we are? Is this what the founding fathers envisioned? Well, I ask that question right back at you, Mr. Obama. Is this who you are? That you say, well, you know what? I'm not going to veto that bill. I'm not going to close Guantanamo. I'm not going to fight against the Republicans that want to keep it open because it would cost me a little bit politically. So 86 of them are supposed to be released. They should be free to go, but I'm not going to release them because it hurts my political career just a tiny bit. So don't play me these games about how you're moral and you're trying to do the right thing. If you want to do the right thing, there's an easy way to do it. You do it, especially on the detainees that as executive you have full power over. Stop hiding behind the Republicans. And if you say, and this speech is part of you saying that you're going to close Guantanamo and actually follow the rule of law, by God, do it already.